Welcome back to We Are the Ioway, a citizen journalist podcast about the Báxoje people, also known as the Ioway, and specifically the citizens of the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. I'm your host, Olivia Brien, tribal citizens, communications professional, and citizen journalist. This is the third episode of We Are the Ioway and is part of the election series featuring interviews with candidates running for positions on the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska's Executive Committee, or EC. As a member of the General Council myself, I'm hosting these conversations to help inform and engage voters. The Iowa Tribe's 2025 election will take place on Saturday, October 18, from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. There are 4 individuals running for member or member at large: incumbent Bradley Campbell, and challengers Reuben IronHorse Kent, Donell Robidoux Zerkel, and Nathan Popejoy. The member is expected to represent the interests of tribal members, address their concerns, and serve as a liaison between the executive committee and tribal citizens. Transparency and communication are key. All 4 members at large candidates were invited to participate in an interview on this podcast. Current member at large Bradley Campbell chose not to schedule an interview. I asked Nathan Popejoy to interview by reaching out to him on social media and through family. Unfortunately, I didn't hear from him. In today's episode, we'll be speaking with Reuben IronHorse Kent and Donell Robidoux Zerkel. Here is Reuben Kent.
Mie chekiraje. Ha hena. Raige. Cheto. My given English name is Reuben IronHorse Kent. Originally just Reuben Kent, but I added the Iron Horse in memory of a predecessor. I'm currently running for member at large of the Iowa tribe, Kansas and Nebraska, and if elected, I will do my best to represent all of the membership and not certain factions. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Donell Robidoux Zerkel.
Hi, I'm Donell Robidoux Zerkel. I grew up in Northeast Kansas here, along with a lot of you as well. I went to Hiawatha High School, where I graduated from there, and then went to Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas, where I got my bachelor's degree in education, and then went on to teach actually at Kickapoo Nation School, which was a lovely experience to learn more about that culture and be a part of that community, which I really felt that way as well. And then went on into the corporate world to work in manufacturing and training, HR, organizational development, and the such. And so at this season in my life, I feel it's now time to come back and participate and do as much as I can for all of us.
The Ioway Diaspora, Political Representation. I myself once lived more than 1,500 miles away from the tribe. During those years, I felt a sense of disconnection. It was hard to be involved from afar. However, I was fortunate to return for most elections and general council meetings. Not everyone living outside our service area can afford the time or money or even have the physical ability to travel to the reservation regularly or at all. With no absentee or mail-in voting options for tribal elections and no remote access or voting during general council and executive committee meetings, how will you ensure tribal members from across the Ioway diaspora are represented politically during these meetings?
There are several possibilities there. Since we live in a day of mass communications, we could use many social platforms, and I'm aware that a lot of I've spoken with tribal members that shy away from social platforms in this area. So I understand the difficulty of talking someone into engaging.
Yes, that's a good one. And politically, throwing that word in there is something that kind of sets me off to a different side, but I do want to make sure the priority is that people are being heard and that people have a voice. And how I will do that is to connect with them via their relatives as much as possible, and then also provide virtual and in-person opportunities for them, and just listen to how they want to be heard is the most thing.
No matter where our tribal citizens live, they should feel seen and heard by our elected officials. What specific mechanisms will you utilize to gather input from all tribal members to bring their concerns to the executive committee?
First and foremost would be accessing information such as addresses, even the old-fashioned landline telephone. I know a lot of people are dependent on that specifically. Lots of different ways, even the old-fashioned mimeographed mail notification. Slow but sure.
Similar to the question before, providing some virtual options as well as Google Forms, etc., surveys that can be completed, showing up to the events that I'm aware of, which I will be aware of, and just talking to people in person and connecting with them that way, providing my email address, my phone number, and then going to meet people where they are.
What strategies will you use to ensure underrepresented voices, such as elders, youth, active service, and disabled tribal members, are heard?
Again, gathering information. I think a simple survey, collating the different information, age, what demographic you're actually in, and extra questions like, what are your main concerns and how would you like to be served?
Well, one of the great opportunities that's provided is our elder luncheon. And so attending those is a nice time to connect with them. And then as much as they're comfortable, finding out the opportunities where I can visit with them personally in their homes. Same for the youth groups would be going to the schools and getting the opportunity to speak with them at the schools, the Boys and Girls Club as well. And our veterans, I know there's a lot of opportunities that they take to get together. And so reaching out to our veterans in that manner.
Tribal governments have a government-to-government relationship with tribal, local, and state governments, as well as the federal government. What is your experience engaging with various governments? What overarching messages or goals do you plan to bring to other governments?
I've been a state employee for the state of Kansas at the Native American Heritage Museum when it was the Native American Heritage Museum. I worked for them for a little while and understand some of the ins and outs of protocols, procedures, and I have a grasp of why they're in place. Government to government, I think we might be at a disadvantage currently, but that doesn't mean we're going to quit. We can just throw in the towel and give up.
Yeah, when I was at a former employer, I did a lot of work with the city and the state of working with training and customized training programs, looking at workforce development needs, etc. So those were the opportunities that I had with those, as much to the level of the governor coming to our place and just talking out how and what needs we have as employers. So I did work with them a lot in that way as well. And then in the past, I was actually a page when I was in high school and went to the State Department and this House of Representatives and worked with them doing different things there. So
The Ioway diaspora, relationship and community. If elected, what ways will you ensure tribal members from across the entire Ioway diaspora are connected and in community with one another?
Well, when I worked with the Friends group of the museum, I ran across an individual on the board. He was Citizen Band, Potawatomi. And what they had done was to divide the country up into regions and had those regions meet, and then those regions would send a member to represent that region. Thought that was pretty clever, and I couldn't see why the Ioway couldn't do that. But that's just one idea. There's others out there. So I'll wait to see what they are.
Kind of back to the other things we talked about. Facebook and social media is a good way as well. But I do want to encourage people that aren't getting on social media to get back with all EC members, myself mostly via email or in-person interviews, virtual, of course. And then of course me going to them if possible and if financially, fiscally responsible at the time, to go to events or activities that they may be at as well. So I think it's very important to go meet folks where they are, and there will be a lot to learn about that once I can get hands-on data and demographics, etc.
How would you handle decisions that benefit all tribal members but are unpopular locally? Or the opposite, decisions that benefit tribal members living in the service area but are unpopular with Ioways overall?
Interesting question, as it's more like an observation, I believe. I thought the census ideal a couple of years ago, 20s, I think, was a good ideal, but I also see how out of service area tribal members would feel utilized as opposed to respected or their decisions honored.
Yeah, the decisions, of course, that will be made are as a team. I don't make decisions solely. That's not the way it works. I am wholeheartedly going in there, focusing on current strategic plans, mission, and visions that are already created, that the leadership prior to has developed, and focusing on the priorities of the needs analysis and the needs of the community. And so there's always going to be someone that is not completely happy, but the goal there then is to listen and ask, what can we do?
How will you resolve internal tribal conflicts or divisions?
I always thought that communication was the best method, knowing that sometimes the two parties may have higher passion than what the subject or the object might desire. Communication.
Listen and listen and listen some more. Again, there's and understanding what the conflict is. My goal is to ask a lot of questions. And that's how we can dive in and understand where people are coming from and learn that we need to meet in the middle to all focus on where we're all going together as a community to focus on the priorities that meets the needs of the greater good in the whole.
We now have 4 planned General Council meetings per year, up from the 1 per year required by our Constitution and bylaws. Unfortunately, intimidation and other scare tactics are constantly present at our General Council meetings, especially when voting for motions. If elected, how will you build community and foster a peaceful and productive environment during General Council meetings?
That passions and emotions are at peak sometimes because sometimes the family members are speaking for their younger generations. Again, discussion is most important. We seem to get into the habit of whoever's loudest is the winner. Not always so.
First off, I'm going to say constantly, it might be a bit of a stretch. I believe that at the majority of the time frame, there are a few types of contentious questions. My guidance and my hope will be that we start with a prayer. We start off with something that brings us all together and understanding we're going together in these places, and that passion comes out sometimes in ways that come across that way. I also would like to encourage all of our general council members to make sure they get proper resources and vet their sources before asking questions, and be prepared for that.
Provide an example of a time you listened to a community concern and helped turn it into action.
Years back, when I first ran across a tribal member that wanted to establish or revitalize a powwow commission tradition, and he informed me that the general council time did not want that to happen. So took it upon ourselves to organize, and he did most of the groundwork and the footwork, and I did a little bit of the labor in order to, but we got a dance on the weekend at the what was then the Riding Club in White Cloud, Kansas, on top of the hill for the fourth state. And I think it's been happened there a couple of times, and now it's grown to where it is today.
This is a recent one, and it's actually probably still in motion. So just to be fair, I'll be a little vague with the details. But a lot of the concern on in the community right now is water and clean water. So I have a resource, someone that I know and work with that has the ability to help with that. And so I shared that person's contact information with a member of the EC, as well as someone that's involved with that water project that could potentially have some solutions. Another one was just from the powwow, some comments on Facebook. I'm trying to keep up with that information as well. Someone asking, how can I get a t-shirt? Well, I just reached out to the appropriate person on the powwow committee and suggested, let's have some booths elsewhere when we have other events, so you can sell those shirts and get them to folks, as well as just provide some ongoing monies coming in for the powwow committee.
Executive Committee expectations and accountability. In August, the General Council voted on a new law making all Executive Committee positions full-time at a minimum. Members of the Executive Committee will earn wages as set by the General Council, but cannot feasibly hold a second full-time position and fulfill the duties of the office. What is your plan regarding your employment if elected?
Fairly simple. Being retired, I have no real, and I take the term full-time employment as serious and definite.
Currently, I am self-employed, so I will monitor that as appropriate and let everyone know that's the case. And tribe is priority, in my opinion, in our community. So that's my plan for that.
Imagine a colleague decides not to follow this tribal law. How will you ensure the law is enforced?
Actually, if the rest of the tribal council decides not to enforce it, then I would feel obligated to inform the general council. Because after all, we are or will be employees. We are and will be employees of the general council, not of each other.
So my HR hat is coming on here now with performance management and discipline and et cetera. But again, making sure I am well versed in the law and the resolution and the employment policies and the EC policies that exist, and following that as necessary. And that's what we do as a team. It's to me always going to be a team decision. It should be, unless dire emergencies are how things happen. So sometimes other ways have to be done. So, but definitely a group effort.
Transparency. According to our Constitution and bylaws, Article 12, Section 3, all meetings of the Executive Committee shall be open to tribal members. Ideally, the General Council would be notified of all EC meetings so they have the opportunity to attend. While it might not always be possible, especially for emergency meetings, I'd personally appreciate notice whenever possible. How will you ensure tribal members are informed about any meetings held outside of the regularly scheduled Executive Committee meetings held weekly on Wednesdays?
Hopefully, since I intend to have an open door policy and be open to any information sharing from, I'll just return that courtesy. And whatever happens, I'll just have to take a chance that they can get the word before it happens.
Feel the role as the member, this is very important, and that I would work with the secretary to develop a short summary of whatever the actions and outcomes were of that meeting, and then get approval by all of the EC members to share that as necessary.
Tribal law has not been followed regarding publishing meeting minutes and video recordings on the members area for General Council and Executive Committee meetings. Often, members of the General Council have problems accessing tribal records. How do you plan to remedy this?
Well, firm insistence that that rule be followed. I'm not sure about the rest, and it's going to depend on the team that's elected in. If it's going to be the same individuals, it may not happen. If it's a change of any two or three, I mean, the team is only as good as the individual members, and I think that's where a lot of not failings, but a lot of different attitudes have been brought to the mix, not healthy.
Well, I would need to dive into that law and then come to a better understanding of what is meant by not being followed and to whose expectation, which would be the laws and as it is written. And so I would have to dive into that to find that out first, and then see what has been shared appropriately to the law or not, and then dive into asking why and why not, and what else can we do? Because the importance of the information is for all of our general counsel to be well-versed and educated about what is happening, what is going on. This lends to not only the transparency talk that we hear a lot, but also, more importantly, the trust.
Community-sourced questions. The following questions were drawn from comments and suggestions on Facebook and direct conversations with tribal members. This final selection represents key issues raised by our community. Culture. Without our language and our culture, we cease to exist as Ioway people. What are your plans to support cultural initiatives?
Good question. I think we have the a basis for expansion and revitalization of a lot of the culture, especially the material culture. The language we're going to have to work on, because there's a lot of different information, a lot of different perspectives on how that old language worked. I know that there are people working on it, and I know there are people would like to enhance it in some ways. I mean, even looking at some of the efforts today when they say the ancient language, are they talking about the Winnebago, or are they talking Proto-Siouan? We are dialects of Siouan peoples. Oto being Druidian, that's why it was those three dialects are sister languages. But there's going to be a lot of study, a lot of hard evaluation going to be happening, because sometimes it's not a simple fix. It's not as simple as teaching a culture in a class, because this is something from the heart, something from the mind, spirit, even the emotion has to be involved. It's a massive undertaking, and we have so many distractions today. I heard a nice suggestion over the weekend, and it was why do we have just one gathering? Why not two? Why not three, four? And exactly so. Why not? I mean, look at that old culture when the buffalo had half a year and the bear had half a year. I see a possibility, but I don't see the result yet. But I'm hopeful.
With this question about how I will support our culture and our language is to listen. So the role as the member is to listen and discuss with our enrollment, with our people, our citizens. And that's where I plan to stay in my lane, because there are programs, there are services that exist that have boards, that have folks involved, that have committees that are actively working on these things. And so my job would be to listen to everyone else and reach out, as I mentioned earlier, to get input and to pass that information along to these already existing services, programs, committees. The other part would be, as on the executive committee, when these groups come to us for support and resources, would be to ask the questions, dive into what's happening now, what's not happening, what do you need, and then vote accordingly to provide the support that's necessary. But my perspective is to not only use the current people that are knowledgeable and passionate about working in these programs, but also to find out who else out there is and wants to be involved. And that's where we're bringing in folks that don't necessarily live on the reservation or in the immediate area, because as we're finding out, we have a lot of smart people. We have a lot of passionate people that want to be a part of what's going on and what's happening. And that's what who we are as a community. We're all one people. We are all together, and we need to go together. So that's where my support will be. That will come across as asking a lot of questions and expecting things to be delivered and action items and project timelines, etc. So that's what my support will look like.
Sovereignty. What does sovereignty mean to you?
Sovereignty. That's a very pretty word. And sometimes people think it means the ability to do as you please. And they forget that part that says you're responsible for the things that you do. I mean, it's just not what they call carte blanche to do whatever you want to and not worry about the repercussions, the circumstances that you've created, or any other myriad possibilities that somebody's going to feel the result of. Because just it's like that right of to throw my fist ends where your nose begins. It's respect.
The question is, what does sovereignty mean to me? To me, sovereignty means our ability as a community to provide the services for ourselves via our own resources, whether that be economic or natural resources, our ways of hunting and gathering, providing, same with medicine, using each other as resources and support. But I think more importantly, again, as the member position, it's what does sovereignty mean to everyone else? What I will do is to help identify the resources we have in our economic development arms as well, to encourage them to support us in that sovereignty.
Sustainable agriculture. What will you do to support sustainable agriculture for our tribe?
If there are suggestions or desires to set aside certain areas of the reservation for the cessation of chemical use, spraying, herbicide, fungicide, insecticide, all these sides that we've grown to love and depend on for our food. And we don't stop to think if that's actually cumulative that might hurt either the unborn or the next generation. I'd be all for it, but also realizing there's a place for agribusiness. But it has to be carefully approached and evaluated.
Right, the sustainable agriculture, how will I support that is, again, we have entities, we have departments, we have programs in place that are responsible for our agriculture, our sustainability of it, and continuance of it. And that's where I feel like maybe we need some more support is this is what we want to do, and now we need more support of how we will continue doing it through programs, work instructions, SOPs, etc., standard operating procedures of the how we'll do it now and going forward. We have departments, we have programs that are responsible for this. Finding the right people, not that we don't have the right people, but making sure we keep the right people in these roles as well to make it happen.
In closing, we'll hear first from Reuben IronHorse Kent.
Well, for many years, I've stepped back and observed how the tribe has been going. For many years, I've said, well, how does it affect me? And as long as everything was going the way I thought and the way things were happening, and knowing that I was one person and probably wouldn't be able to change anything, I watched. And I think I've watched long enough. Now I want to represent not the governing body, but the entire tribal population, because I think they deserve a voice and not to be told what to do, but to be able to make decisions and have them follow. So elect me.
Now, we'll hear Donell Robidoux Zerkel's closing statement.
I just really appreciate you, Olivia, for bringing this opportunity to us all to share a little bit about why we're running and the concerns and things that are happening with the tribe. My reason for running is that I've always felt pulled to come and be a bigger part of the tribe. It just wasn't a season of my life at the times in the past, but now it is. Now is the time I'm really feeling comfortable with that. And so I'm very much a part of being, we're all in this together and we need to go together. And I feel that was one of the last things that Lance mentioned in the last meeting he went to, Lance Foster, was that instead of making people or pushing people to do something, you bring them along. And that's really what I'm focusing on doing. So, the title of this interview was Member Challenger. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a challenger. I am someone that is running for a position, not against anyone at all. And so, and I know we all feel that way. So that's just the kind of way I wanted to end the chat today. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for the third episode of We Are the Ioway, a part of the special election series featuring conversations with candidates for the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska's Executive Committee. Tribal elections will take place this Saturday, October 18, from 8:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. Torigun, or until next time, and thank you so much for listening to We Are the Ioway.